All right. Thank you for that wonderful keynote. It's a pleasure to present after such a great talk about inclusion and outreach and hosts of other things. In fact, some of that will be incorporated in what we're planning to do with extensions rebooted. And if you're curious, we'll hang on there. So, thanks for coming for my talk. This is Better Extensions Experience, Extensions Rebooted, and I am your host, Sriram Ramkrishna. Okay, let's start. So, we'll start up a little bit just to level set. And what is extensions, right? So, extensions are essentially JavaScript written using the JGS, which is our JavaScript bindings for the GNOME platform. And what they do is they extend the GNOME shell through a process called monkey patching. This is so that we can add, or people can add things that normally is not in the default experience of GNOME shell. Now, the term monkey patching, I'm going to kind of give a slightly inaccurate visual on what monkey patching is, but think about a car going down the street at speed and people changing parts out and replacing them, adding new things while it's still on the highway. So that's kind of, if that sounds scary to you, then yes, that's exactly why this is also scary. But new code is, and more technically, new code is inserted into running code, and you pretty have the entire code base open to you. There's no private or public code, and anything can be modified and used, just like that car on the road. So extensions can break. If anything changes, that could mean not just the shell itself, but the platforms underneath it, the libraries underneath it, and it's not intentional. Code changes, and so it gets reflected. So that's a short of what the extensions are, and a little bit about the extensions community. So I'd like to thank Yuri, who provided me with some of these statistics. But we have about 500 installed extensions, and that's through the browser. We don't actually track how many are just downloaded or anything like that, or how it's coming through your distro or any other methodology used to get extensions. This is just through the website and through the extensions. So you can see there's like 321 using Chromium to do this, and then 134,000 using Firefox. I don't know why one is more popular than the other, but this is over a 4-year period. I actually expected the number of extensions to be more for some reason, given the amount of noise out there. I expected more. But in any case, some other numbers, we have top extensions. The top 4 is user themes at 310,000. Applications menu 258,000, dash doc is 218, and then Windows Liz 168. So one cool thing is of the 4, 3 of them is officially supported by GNOME. So that's great. And then dash doc is the third-party software. So once again, thank you, Yuri, for providing those numbers. So moving on, what's our situation right now, right? And this is sort of why this initiative got started. So one, the most popular extensions tend to break at the end of each release. And a lot of those extension owners, they don't even know that their extension is going to break until we release or their distro migrates to the new GNOME version. They're somewhat ignorant about the development cycle of GNOME shell. So they're probably just one day they said it's broken, somebody says it's broken, and then they take their time to get it done, but it's not there at release day. Um, the community itself doesn't know who's responsible. If you look at the community, they'd be like, well, they think GNOME is responsible, and we're not really responsible. We're partially responsible in the sense that there's no guidance, but as far as the community is concerned, this is our doing. And then authors, there's not a huge pool of documentation. We've actually seen a flurry of YouTube videos showing how to do extensions and things like that. But a lot of it, people just look at the older extensions they look at the code to take it out. And then I thought this was kind of odd, but the most common place authors go for help is Reddit. Not exactly my favorite platform to ask questions, especially on something like extensions. So, but in my estimation, right, this from a community perspective, for what we see in terms of issues, this is a I don't want to use the word perennial, but it's a repeating problem that happens every time around release. And up till now, we've sort of let it fester because it's unaddressed. But as you can see, if there's 500,000 people using extensions, and some portion of that are out in the weeds, that's not good for our brand or anything else. So, and we should do something about that. So to mitigate this, we really want to is to improve what's happening today, and that solution is not just a technical solution, right? But it's a combination of many things. So the solution needs to be both about engineering process, it needs to be about policy, it needs to be about great documentation, and really we want to create a sustaining community to handle this, so that we can take pressure off GNOME Shell developers in doing this, right? And so this is kind of like the high level objective for this initiative is to get the pressure off of GNOME Shell developers. But the best way to fix a bad situation is through leadership, and it is absolutely essential that we lead on this because there's nobody else who can. So that now we'll talk about a little bit about what the goals of the Extensions Rebooted initiative is. Some short-term goals. So we have we just started working on building a CI pipeline to do basic load tests. We actually were able to run GNOME Shell headless and be able to test a load an extension, check to see if it worked or not. And so a lot of that part is complete. We have some upcoming challenges in regards to building a container that will take code from Git, right? So there's no point using a distro supplied GNOME Shell here. We need to be able to do this from a just release code base. So that's going to be a challenge. Building that CI pipeline container is going to be a challenge. So, but the general idea that we can do a load test on a headless system, that I feel like that's like a lot of the way forward. We are thinking about providing guidelines for extension developers. I'll talk a little bit about that further slides. Feedback mechanism for extension developers, give them feedback on the things they write, create a brain trust. We want to think about, as a matter of policy, centralizing extensions on the GNOME GitLab, but not necessarily you have to develop your extension on GitLab. But that might be a little bit controversial. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then redesign the extensions GNOME.org website. Yuri has actually done some work on this already. And so that seems to be moving apace. Okay, and then so On the matter of providing clear extension guidelines, and this has come from Andy Holmes, who's been doing a lot of the reviews, and I would also like to credit Neil for also reviewing extensions. Both of them put a lot of work, and if I let your name out, I'm sorry. It's probably because of ignorance, but uh, a lot of them have put a lot of work into um, reviewing extensions and making that. And truly, that the lag between how extensions gets approved and put on the website has been slow, and we're hoping that reviews can be faster by providing some good guidelines, but also maybe look at engineering processes. So some of the things that these are things that Andy came up with. Cleaning up your code after your extension has been disabled. Don't download external code from somewhere and put your extensions at risk. Definitely don't be executing binaries inside your extension. Um, don't do strange custom updates to update your extensions without bypassing our review system. And uh, don't obfuscate your code, which I think is good. So there's a link here that talks about uh, how the how the extensions are. So something to think about there. I'm going a little faster than I intended here. So centralizing extensions. Um, I wonder if this is controversial or not. For me, this is something that I felt was the best way to create a process, right? If we want to do efficiencies, we have to uh, have a singular place to get our extensions tested uh, through the pipeline. Have ways to um, uh, work with each other, be able to look at each other's code in a way. And there's all kinds of other benefits. If we get our CI pipeline working in a way that we could even test how many extensions break on a code commit, right? And not because that's important, but rather we can get some idea where code is being touched on an extensions, right? So if we're touching a piece of the code in GNOME shell, and then suddenly we have 15 extensions broken, then we know there's that many people at least using this piece of the code, right? So yeah, I think those are nice ways to know. Like maybe you want to model an API, but so you get some idea of risk, right? Um, there are some burdens on this that I recognize. We might file issues on the GNOME GitLab, and they may have to look at two bug-based databases. Um, they may have to change the release process to use our GNOME GitLab. But again, I'm not insisting that people develop extensions on the GNOME GitLab, but because it's Git, you can move it anywhere, honestly. So so in this case, I think over time the benefits of centralizing extensions in one place is going to be something that's going to be beneficial in the end. So this is probably I'm not completely married to this, but if somebody has a better methodology, I'm totally willing to um, think about that. But as a matter of policy, I think centralizing extensions, also policy around what can go up on the extension's website if they don't pass the test, things like that. But I fully intend to get the GitLab as a gateway to extensions GNOME.org. This is just a matter of making sure that our quality and release process is well understood to extension writers, and where they stand on that. So especially if they're not going to maintain their extensions anymore after a period, um, then um, I don't see why a broken extension should be on our website. I do understand that there are complications with LTS and extensions that needs to target that. So understanding the different versioning and what we target with extensions is something we have to think about also going forward. So community improvements, and we can't really do this on our own. It's well understood that we don't have resources. This is where building a community and having them manage them is going to be key. So, but to do that, we have to build. The onus is on us to build it, right? To build a community. And so, one, we want to improve the atmosphere for everyone, which a friendly place where there are experts to be able to talk to, have great collaborations between extension writers, GNOME shell developers, uh, better API documentation if such a thing is truly possible. Uh, Going back to my comment about monkey patching, um, those are things that we can think about, but not sure we have a plan going forward. A channel for them to congregate with real time chat, maybe a place in our discourse to talk about it. So these are great things. Come up with analytics so that so a lot of this is just making sure that we can build a community that can sustain itself, and again take pressure off the GNOME shell developers. And also we can't ignore the fact that new developers working on GNOME shell can come from an extensions community. I have no doubts that people who work on popular extensions like um, the doc software, things like that, probably know the GNOME shell code base as well as anybody, right? So, and we should also think of it as a recruiting tool to bring more developers into the GNOME shell community. So that's another bit. So on that note, we have a BOF that is on July 26th, and we're going to talk about the future of extensions with the rest of you. And a lot of it is going to be centered around developer tooling, definitely documentation, the whole bit about bringing the load tests, working on containers and things like that, and really the idea of testing, which I find really exciting about is getting better testing, better Q&A, that kind of thing. How to make the website work better for us, and whether can we or can we not do accessor API brainstorming? Is that something we can do? I realize some of that may be a difficult option, but definitely I think if we can do something like that, that's going to be beneficial for us. This is a call to join our initiative, and the caption is "Join with us and let us end this destructive conflict." So we don't have a formal meeting time. We meet every weekend for a few hours. We do have a matrix channel. everybody's welcome. Uh, we need skill sets of every kind, regardless if you know things about containers or DevOps, how to get system D working in a Docker container would be fantastic. I don't I we've been hitting our heads on this one. I prefer using Podman and Builda, but the 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 current GitLab CI runner stuff seems to be supporting the Docker a bit. Uh, Non-developer skill sets, project management, um, uh, investing in the community, doing engagement, documentation, absolutely. If you are an extension writer, we would love to talk to you because something like this should not be done in a vacuum. Um, you can't just be developers. If you had extension people, we would love to have conversations with all of you, understand um, some of the issues you've been having. All of those things would be pretty important. Um, so, one last slide, I believe. So, the initiative right now is there's four of us, actually maybe five. Yuri there. It's Evan, Andy, and Ruth. I would like to really thank them for helping work on these slides and having great conversations about how we can improve extensions. So if so hang out on our Matrix channel. Yeah, we're not formal people, so come out, hang out, and let's talk extensions or anything else. All right. Thank you very much. I will hang out and answer questions. I don't know how much time we have left. I kind of started early.
I think you can choose 3 questions of that big list of yours because there's a lot of them. I think rest of them can.
I haven't even looked, so I'm afraid.
Yeah, because we have to let go people who actually do captioning. So yeah, choose 3. On the rest of them will stay for BO
Okay.
for the session.
Okay, let me. Good golly. Okay. Evan and Annie will also help answer questions on there. Is moving extension reviews to GitLab in scope? Yes. We have not really thought about that. I would like to, because we're talking about centralization. I believe that extension reviews should be in scope. I will let the one about what does cleanup code when disabled mean. I'll leave that up to Andy. Let's see. Let's see here. So far, most of these questions are being answered by Andy and Evan. Let's see. Is there? So how do we deal with modified versions of GNOME downstream? And I'm going to say that's, if not, we can't. There's no resources to look at everything downstream modifies. We can only work with the code base we have, especially if you're centralizing everything and doing a QA on the GNOME GitLab. If they brought their own containers or they brought their own version of GNOME downstream and provided us with a container that we can test against, then they're welcome to do that. But I believe that the responsibility is on them to do that. So I think pretty much everything else is being answered. Somebody said, are some of the frustrated extension writers optimistic about this initiative? I unfortunately have been trying to do an outreach to accession writers, and they seem to be a hard group to get a hold of. We are going to try to reach out to some of them. I'm sure they are frustrated, given the delays we get in reviews or any of these other things. So I absolutely believe that this initiative would be welcome, because again, leadership is providing that leadership and having them be invested in it is something that I can't imagine that they would not um, embrace. So, um, all right.
Okay.
I guess I'm done.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sri, about this excellent talk. This is
Yeah.
it seems to be topic really, really sitting on many people's hearts. That kind of wraps up today, day 3 at Agodec 2020. Thank you all for showing